Beyoncé gave a whole Grammy speech, thanked everybody she could think of, and didn't say Solange's name once. Not once. And this is a woman who wrote songs for Beyoncé, who was part of her creative process for years, who literally fought Jay-Z in an elevator on camera to defend her sister. And Beyoncé stood on that stage, looked out at millions of people, and acted like Solange didn't exist. That moment right there is when fans started paying attention, because something between these two had clearly shifted. And now, allegedly, Jason Lee, the same man Beyoncé physically dodged at an event to avoid taking a photo, with claims he's sitting on receipts that could explain everything. Receipts that reportedly involve Solange directly. And if what the streets are saying is true, the reason Beyoncé doesn't want this information out there has nothing to do with protecting her brand, and everything to do with what she might have dragged her own sister into. Okay, so let me unpack this, because there are layers here that go way deeper than a sibling rivalry. Let's start with what we actually know about these sisters, because the history matters. Beyoncé and Solange used to be inseparable, like genuinely close in a way that felt rare for two people operating in the same industry. Back in 2012, Solange did an interview with Roller Coaster magazine where she talked about Beyoncé being her role model, crediting her older sister for teaching her everything about what comes with fame, the good parts and the ugly parts. She said watching Beyoncé navigate the industry helped her understand what she was signing up for. And the protectiveness went both ways. There's a well-known story about how when Solange was getting bullied in school, Beyoncé literally pulled up with her band members to handle it. That's not PR sisterhood, that's real.
She's 5 years, but I'm very protective, and I always treated her like my baby. And one day she told us this little bully, this little guy in school, she was only about 9, was really harassing her. So me and my girls all showed up, and we surrounded him, and we're like, "You've been messing with my sister? I'm telling you, you've been warned, and tell him Destiny's Child is warning you." So we were real gangster.
And of course, the moment everybody remembers is that elevator incident where Solange went after Jay-Z on camera, defending her sister in a way that told you exactly where her loyalty was. And honestly, the funniest part of that footage has always been Beyoncé just standing there watching it happen like she'd seen this movie before. But that closeness, that ride or die energy, people are saying it's gone now. And the reasons being floated for why are getting more serious by the week. So here's where the cracks started showing publicly. When Beyoncé dropped Renaissance, fans immediately noticed that Solange was nowhere near the project. And that was weird, because the album's sound, the experimental, genre-blending, deeply artistic direction was exactly Solange's lane. This is literally the kind of music Solange has built her entire solo career around. Industry insiders picked up on it too. People close to the situation said it was strange that Solange wasn't involved in any capacity, and even stranger that she didn't post a single tweet or Instagram in support of the album after it dropped. Nothing. Not a repost, not a congratulatory story, not even a vague emoji. Complete silence from a sister who was supposedly her biggest champion. And this is the same woman who in previous years went on full public rants defending Beyoncé when she felt her sister got snubbed for Album of the Year at the Grammys. She would go to war for that woman on social media without being asked.
And then Beyoncé, I ain't gonna share the exact conversation, but she showed me, told me like, this is people, like, what I mean? Saying something like that could personally hurt her and that kind of. And I say, you know what, I get it. And I say, when I see Solange, that I'll apologize to her.
So going from that level of vocal, aggressive, unprompted support to absolute radio silence during one of the biggest album rollouts of Beyoncé's career, that's not an accident, and that's not someone being busy. That's a statement. And the people paying attention knew something was seriously wrong, even if neither sister was willing to say a word about it publicly. Now, the theories about what caused the rift have been circulating for a while, and honestly, some of them are more convincing than others. There's even an old conspiracy theory documented by BuzzFeed back in 2013 that Beyoncé is actually Solange's mother and not her sister, based on an alleged birth certificate from a Texas civil servant dating Beyoncé's birth to 1974. Plus, a comment Gabrielle Union made in 2008 about being friends with Beyoncé since they were teenagers, which wouldn't add up with Beyoncé's official birth year. Now, I personally don't buy that one at all, considering Beyoncé's childhood has been extensively documented from a very young age, but the fact that these theories even exist tells you how much people have always sensed that the dynamic between these two was more complicated than the family ever let on. The more credible theory that keeps coming up is about Mama Tina. There have been years of speculation that Tina Knowles treats Beyoncé noticeably better than Solange and that it's not even something she tries to hide.
Because Beyoncé had become like this little star in the town, and she was always so close to Solange and so kind to her, but then she was in the singing group. So everything took place at our house. So the other girls in the group would tell Solange to shut up and be quiet and all that. And I started noticing that she wasn't protecting her sister. And you know, I got a thing about that. And I was like, that's your sister. You don't let people talk to your sister like that. She was like, yeah, but she comes in and busts in and she wants to boss us around and do steps. And so I just started seeing this, you know, separation. And I said, oh no, y'all are gonna grow up close if I have to.
And look, favoritism in families is real, and it messes people up in ways that don't always surface until decades later, especially when one sibling is literally the most famous entertainer on the planet, and the other is an incredibly talented artist who has always existed in that shadow no matter what she does. If Solange spent her entire career writing songs for her sister, contributing to the creative engine that powers the Beyoncé machine, and still felt like the family saw her as secondary, I completely understand why that would eventually become unbearable. The streets have been saying that Solange got tired of being used and barely getting recognition for her contributions, and that's what started the slow drift away from the family. And I have to say that framing actually makes a lot of sense when you look at how Solange has essentially retreated from the spotlight over the past several years. She hasn't released music in close to a decade. She's been quiet. She's been distant. That doesn't look like someone taking a creative break. That looks like someone who's done. The second theory is about Jay-Z, and this is where things start getting considerably heavier. Allegedly, Solange has been telling Beyoncé for years that she needs to leave Jay-Z. The argument being that Jay-Z keeps disrespecting Beyoncé publicly, that the cheating alone should have ended things a long time ago. And this is the part that's been gaining serious traction recently, that Jay-Z's connections to Diddy make the whole situation not just embarrassing, but genuinely dangerous. And after everything that's come out about Diddy in the last year, that concern doesn't sound paranoid anymore. It sounds prescient. People are saying that Solange knew about the Jay-Z and Diddy connection and tried hard to get her sister out of that marriage because Jay was the link. But Beyoncé wouldn't listen. And if you're Solange, watching your sister stay in a situation you believe is harmful despite your repeated warnings, at some point, you stop trying. At some point, you protect yourself. And that's apparently what happened. But okay, here's the part that's really been circulating, and it connects directly back to Jason Lee. There are claims that the real breaking point between Beyoncé and Solange isn't just about Jay-Z or favoritism. It's about Solange wanting to come clean about something, and Beyoncé telling her absolutely not. Whatever this something is, it's allegedly what Jason has been holding over Beyoncé's head. And let me explain why that matters. Because Jason Lee has been on a whole campaign against the Carters for a minute now. This is the man who chased Beyoncé around an entire event trying to get a photo with her, and she physically dodged him the whole night, like she saw him coming and moved in the other direction. He later claimed he did get the photos and that Beyoncé knew exactly who he was. But honestly, the optics of that interaction told you everything about where he stands with that family, which is nowhere. And yet, despite clearly being on the outside looking in, this man has gone on his podcast and called Beyoncé and Jay-Z anti-black. He's called Beyoncé fake, trashed her product lines, and essentially positioned himself as someone who is willing to burn every bridge with the Carters and doesn't care about the consequences. He's even claimed on his podcast that Jay-Z has been sending people to call him and warn him against speaking about the family, essentially implying threats.
Jay-Z, you're watching. I know you're watching because you got people calling me. Stop having people call me. You can call me yourself. You know how to get my number. You know, you got people calling me. Call me yourself, because this right here is going to go viral. The way my job works on the internet, everybody's going to be clipping, sharing on TikTok. Watch this. Do your thing, TikTok. Jay-Z and Beyoncé is going to see this. I am exhausted with people calling me about Jay-Z and Beyoncé. You've never called for anything else, and I haven't even said anything about you yet. And yet I'm getting all these calls. I've gotten more calls over the weekend about Jay-Z and Beyoncé.
And the fact that he's still talking after all of that, either he's genuinely reckless and doesn't care what happens to him, or he actually has something worth holding on to that makes him feel untouchable. Because normally, when the Carter machine decides you're a problem, you disappear from the conversation. People stop inviting you places. Your access dries up. Your phone stops ringing. Jason hasn't gone quiet. If anything, he's gotten louder and more specific with every passing month. And then there's what's been going on with Solange personally, which adds yet another layer to all of this that most people aren't connecting. It's been reported that she's gotten deeply into African spiritual practices and has been pulling further and further away from the entertainment industry entirely. She's essentially gone ghost, and just recently, when Nicki Minaj was going public with allegations about the Knowles Carter family, Solange did something that caught everybody off guard. She did a quick post and delete of what appeared to be a witchcraft doll. She put it up and then took it right back down, which people interpreted as either a direct warning to Nicki or a signal that Solange is operating on a completely different wavelength now than anyone in her family. People who have been following her closely say she's changed significantly and that she's moving toward exposing things about her own family. Whether that's connected to what Jason claims to know, or whether these are two separate streams that happen to be flowing in the same direction. The timing of it all is hard to ignore. And listen, I need to be clear that some of the allegations that have been floating around are extremely serious and unverified. Jaguar Wright has made claims about the Carters that are genuinely disturbing and involve people being transported across borders against their will.
I've talked to hundreds that I deal with still myself. I have 3 victims right now who are willing to give testimony about not only what Mr. Carter has done to them, but his wife as well. They do nasty things.
What do you think happened with Kim
Keeping people against their will, putting people on planes while they're unconscious, just like Aaliyah got on that plane. And everyone knows it.
Rihanna's former publicist, Jonathan Hay, has talked publicly about being stopped by federal agents who he said were monitoring Jay-Z in connection with separate incidents. And there are people online who have been connecting dots, some real, some probably imagined, suggesting that Beyoncé may have been more involved in certain situations than anyone wants to admit, and that Solange may have been pulled into things she didn't want to be part of. Now, I want to be careful here, because allegations are not facts, and the internet has a tendency to build entire narratives out of speculation. But what I will say is this: the sheer volume of people talking, combined with Jason Lee's insistence that he has real receipts, combined with Solange's visible withdrawal from everything Beyoncé related, combined with the complete silence between these two sisters who used to be each other's fiercest defenders, all of that together paints a picture that something significant is happening behind the scenes that neither of them is ready to address publicly. Whether Jason actually drops what he claims to have, or whether this is just another desperate attempt to force Beyoncé to finally acknowledge his existence, the fact remains that the distance between these sisters is real. It's been growing for years now, and the explanations people are offering for why keep getting darker and more disturbing with every passing month. And if Solange really is moving toward telling her side of whatever this is, the Carters might be facing something that no amount of gatekeeping can control.